Deputy Editor Dan Henninger, as well as Wall Street Journal editorial board member Jason Riley, and Foreign Affairs columnist Bret Stephens. Bret, you read former President Jimmy Carter's op-ed this week in which he said that basically if the Bush administration had followed President Clinton's strategy of the 1990s of negotiating directly with North Korea, none of this would have happened. You buy that?
He used to be president? No, look, Jimmy Carter tells a story that in 1994, he went to Pyongyang during a similar kind of crisis. He sweet-talked with Kim Il-sung, the current leader's father, said nice things about Pyongyang, made an agreement, and everything was fine all the way up until the Bush administration came to town and started speaking aggressively about North Korea being a member of the axis of evil. What that ignores, information that we now know and that was even coming to light during the Clinton years, is that even as the ink was dry on the agreement that Carter signed, or the U.S. signed with North Korea to halt North Korea's plutonium-based weapons program, it was already cooperating with A.Q. Khan, the Pakistan proliferator, to develop a separate uranium-based enrichment nuclear weapons program. So the idea that somehow diplomacy worked flatly is flatly wrong.
Jason?
I know it's mid-October and an election year, but the disingenuousness of these political attacks is really remarkable. Bush is accused of provoking North Korea by including them in the axis of evil when, as everyone knows, for years, North Korea has been brazenly violating international agreements. Bush gets accused or criticized for pushing for multilateral talks when it comes to dealing with North Korea, but he also gets criticized for pushing bilateral talks when it comes to dealing with Saddam Hussein.
But wait a minute. I mean, let's think about this. North Korea has now fired off a missile a couple of months ago that it didn't do before, and it exploded a nuclear weapon in a test now. At least it claims to have. I mean, that's a failure, it seems to me, of policies. And not North Korea is breaking out and threatening and dividing South Korea from the United States. Isn't it making progress?
Well, it's making progress of a sort. I mean, it's dividing the United States from both South Korea and China. I mean, I think one of the flaws in the criticism of the Democrats is that there have been articles recently by both Jimmy Carter, this one, and Bill Perry, Clinton's former defense secretary, and they both kind of jump across the six-party talks that have been going on for several years until they were suspended. And they seem to just blink at the idea that nothing we do with North Korea is going to succeed without the cooperation of China and without the cooperation of South Korea. It's just the idea that the United States and that George Bush can somehow himself talk to the North Koreans and get them to back off on their nuclear program it strikes me as fatuous.
One other interesting element politically in this, John McCain spoke up this week and criticized Bill Clinton, and then in the wake of remarks by Hillary Clinton also criticizing the Bush administration, attacked her for her analysis of this situation. What do you think Senator McCain was up to?
Well, that's really interesting because, John McCain has been involved in this issue going back to 1993 and 1994 when he was explicitly criticizing the agreed framework that Clinton and Carter were forming. McCain has been involved in this subject for a long time, and I think he was putting a shot across the bow of Hillary Clinton, reminding her of that period back when you and I, Paul, heard Hillary Clinton talk last year about North Korea, and then she didn't know what she was talking about, quite frankly.
Bret, does Kim Jong-il, do you think, have anything to fear from the United Nations, from sanctions at the United Nations?
No, not the way the United Nations is speaking. The Chinese and South Koreans have said they'll go for sanctions, but not really ones that are regime-changing sanctions. Russia has sent an emissary to Pyongyang. So the international community, at least via the UN, is sending all the wrong signals. That's not to say that the United States can't start to exert serious pressure on South Korea, serious pressure on the Chinese to change their attitude towards North Korea, but we're not doing it.
And how would you do that, Jason?
Well, sanctions in and of themselves have a spotty history here. I mean, ask Saddam, ask Fidel, ask the Ayatollahs. It's the quality of the sanctions that matter. So you do need the Chinese, you do need the South Koreas to be on board. And sanctions are the way to go. And frankly, with our obligations in Iraq, they limit our options and what we can do.
I mean, I think that's true up to a point, but let's not forget, we've taken very effective financial measures to cut the flow of illegal financing to North Korea. They were using front banks in Macau to work their financing, drug smuggling. There are things you can do, and you can do a naval blockade.
All right, last word, Brett. Thanks. We'll be back after this short